Hi to all the Hoya lovers out there. This is my collection of Hoyas. I will show you the top guns first, which are doing very well. Starting with Hoya pentaflabia, which has a lemon-scented yellow-green flower. And I really love the scent of this. This you can smell from afar, and all my Hoyas, which you will be seeing today, are in a semi-hydro setup with a medium grade lava, charcoal and leca. So leca I have not used much, but I have used in some Hoyas which needs quick drying because leca is very porous. If leca is in the potting media, the media would dry up very fast. If I want to, I can totally dry the pot, and at the same time, if I want to, I can keep a centimeter or two of water at the bottom of the pot, the covering pot, to grow it as in a semi-hydroponic setup. So next one is Hoya acuta or Hoya verticillata, formerly known as Parasitica splash heartleaf because of the heart shape and the speckling. This grew very well for me. For the longest time, this was one of my best performing plants, but due to repotting, it kind of fell back, and I had to recently re-trellis this, and this is also in the same media, and it's doing fine. It's actually has not flowered for me, but the shape and how strong these vines are growing, I am very happy about how this Hoya is growing in my care. And I have added a bit more leca to this, so this would dry off faster. I do not want any root rot, so at times I leave this to dry by removing the covering pot as a whole. So now you're seeing my most favorite plant. I have to be honest about it. This is Hoya CV Jennifer. I absolutely love this. And I bought this as a very long strand for a very cheap price. I think the seller did not know how valuable this would be, and when you saw the plant, you saw the longest leaf where I touched the leaf. That's the longest leaf. There are 3 long leaves on this, and you can see some speckling going on here and there on the leaves, but not much. But this just took off without any hindrance, and it's very calming for me to look at this plant because it has filled in from all sides of the trellis, and the vines are really full. No matter which way I turn the vines, the Hoya still gives me leaves. That is really amazing to me, because normally if a Hoya vine is facing downwards, they do not come up with leaves. On this pot I have used only charcoal and lava rock, all medium grade, no leca, because I understood that by adding leca it would dry out. Since the plant is doing very well with a lot of water, I keep this constantly moist, so there won't be any wrinkling or any setback of this Hoya. This is my favorite. Now you are seeing Hoya incrustata, and this started throwing out long and big leaves very recently, and all these long and big leaves are towards the top of the trellis, as you can see. So to understand this plainly, where it would get direct sunlight, it gave me long and healthy big leaves. This also has not flowered for me yet because I keep chopping this up and planting it in between the main vines to get more fuller look at the bottom of my plant. So each side of the trellis has a plant growing from there, apart from the mother plant, and it's doing very well. And this is my Hoya obscura, which took some time to take off and finally has filled its pot. This is one plant where the strands I have wrapped around the trellis, and this loves water. This is the only Hoya which is in full leca. This is actually in the correct semi-hydro setup. As I'm lifting the pot up, you will see how the roots have taken off, and that white spot you saw is a piece of the plastic where I have punctured the hole. It's not a mealybug, so the leaves are doing fine. This is my Hoya Natalie, and I hope this is Natalie, which is one of my favorite plants. Not the most favorite, but it's one of my favorite plants. And this also took off so well. This would do very well in total leca setup, or this will do well with lava rock and charcoal also. So I had several plants which I've taken from the main vine, which I have got together again and put into one pot to make this full. I think the one that I'm touching now is a separate vine, as well as all the vines. There are 4 vines on this pot, and there's a dark red lining at the edge of the pot, edge of the leaf, which is so nice with a lot of speckling, and it's really calming for me to look at this leaf. This was actually sold to me as a Hoya fungi, but I knew it wasn't when I received it, and when I looked for the name, I knew this was a Natalie, because from another video I saw someone had the same thing, so I totally knew it's a Natalie. So the top leaves have a bit of a sun stressing going on. This can take good sun stressing, just like Hoya pentaflabia. So I want this to bloom. Even if it doesn't bloom, looking at the leaves is just fine for me because I so love the leaves. And this Hoya to me was a conundrum. This is Hoya quinquennea, because the leaves are really light green, and the one leaf cutting that I got, one node cutting that I got, that leaf you can see at the bottom of this vine, which is quite under the potting media now. It is bigger than all of these leaves, but this ended up becoming bigger on the top here again because the light is hitting directly and it's loving it, but the leaves are quite small. So what I'm touching now is one of the bigger leaves that I have, but if you can see now, the leaves are pretty big at the bottom. I never received any more bigger leaves again. Here this is a mixture of leca, charcoal and lava rock. I have put some bird's nest fern pieces on top to battle the top layer getting dry. And this is the Hoya latifolia albumarginata. Previously this was called Hoya macrophylla, but now it's reclassified as a Hoya latifolia. I of course do not understand why, because this is a total different shaped leaf, but now you are seeing glossy leaves because this is neem oil that I have sprayed on it, and these were videotaped on the second day. So as I told you, these took 3 days to be videotaped in between my work times, and this of course has stalled for some time. I do not know why. I might report this, but for the time I cannot see any problems. Now you see the silver speckled Hoya puavensis of mine, which gets its name from the province it was discovered. The silver speckling happens because of the sun. It has to get quite good sunlight to achieve this speckling, but if you expose it to the sun pretty quickly, this would burn, like the holes you see on some of my leaves. The peduncle is quite longer than the other Hoyas, with a white flower and red corona. So this looks awfully similar to Hoya caudata and Hoya undulata. So this is something that is easy to grow, and once it gets going, affinity to know Hoyas, they grow very well. And this is another Hoya which is growing like a tall ladder, Hoya bochai, and I have to grow it like this because it's not easy to wrap it around a trellis, because the stems are quite hard and this has bloomed for me. This has a very light yellow, kind of like Hoya pentaflavia. This is kind of like Hoya pentaflavia, but smells quite stronger than the pentaflavia. So now it's putting out new leaves, and they curl up at first, then they straighten up, and you will see most of them are really doing well because there are not many leaves at the bottom of the plant because of the way which this is growing, but it's doing well. So I finally understood that this needs to shoot up, and I have to let it. So later on I secured this more to these bamboo sticks which I've used as trellises. You are seeing my Hoya Elliptica, which is growing very well now because I took off the peduncle which never bloomed. It would bud up like 10 times, but it would not bloom. So once I took off that peduncle, the plant started growing. Now you are seeing Hoya beccarii. I think this is beccarii, and this also received a very good spraying of neem oil and dish soap. That's why it's very glossy, and this has a huge peduncle at the bottom of the plant. That's how I received the plant. I just received a one leaf cutting, but that peduncle was not active in the recent times, and I think it's been closer to an year for all these Hoyas. But it's doing well in the same semi-hydro setup with lava rock and charcoal. I do not think I have added a lot of leca. There might be no leca in this potting media. Now you are seeing another one of my Hoyas, which is a Hoya latifolia type. It's called the spotted leaf, and this has very rough leaves and they are very hardy. I am sure I have not ever seen any sunburn on this leaf, no matter where I keep it. And the top leaves are quite big, as usual, when the sun is hitting them directly, the morning sun. And this is doing quite fine. But on the other side of this trellis, I have planted another part of this which is not doing very well. Now we are seeing my Hoya crinklate, again one of my favorites. This took some time to take off, but what I did was, as soon as I saw growth, I chopped it up and planted it in the same pot to make it a fuller pot. And because of the 8 crinkles the leaf has, this has been named as crinkle 8. Of course, I still have to see flowers in this. This has never bloomed, but I love it. And recently I gave it more potting media on top because this tends to topple over to one side. And now you're seeing 2 Hoyas, Hoya Ladebergii, which is growing straight, and I recently added some more strands to the sides of this pot, and it's going fine to this moment, and you're seeing Hoya melliflua now. This was one of my favorite plants at once, but it tended to drop leaves. Even if you touch the new leaves of melliflua, they will drop. So this is Hoya plagianesii subspecies, and I love this because this was one of the easiest Hoyas. If you give this a trellis, this would just take off. I have 3 which looks the same, which will be coming in the following videos, and I will show you all 3 plants together also. And this also can take direct sunlight. I don't know the reason. All my Hoyas can take direct sunlight. This is the second one. All these are potted in Tupperware. This is the Serai version, and the new leaves are to die for. So I really love it. They are getting longer and longer, and I'm really loving the new leaves and their shade. And you can see a huge spot at the bottom of the very first leaves, which came to me like that from the seller. And this is the third variety, which looks the same, but this is Hoya bergentensis. So this also I chopped up and I repotted, adding more leca to the potting media. Normally my potting media consists of lava rock and charcoal only because those are my favorite. I make the charcoal on my own at home. So these are the 3 together, and they put quite a show, and I love looking at them. I have added a few extra stones on top to keep these steady. This is also one of my favorite plants. There are a few caudatas in this pot, and I made this trellis myself from a type of bamboo I have at home. I have these in bushes in huge pots. So the dried ones I took and I made this haphazard looking ladder like trellis, which I took off. So what I see from Caudata and all my other Hoyas they tend to fill in from the places they have lost leaves. You're seeing a reddish leaf now, which was quite sun-stressed at the beginning, but now it's coming back to green. So as much as I love sun-stressing the plant, I do not want to overdo it. So this is my Hoya globulosa, which is also very glossy when sprayed with neem oil and dish soap, with a furry underside, and I have chopped it up and planted it in the same pot to give it a more fuller look. I love this. This also took off very easily without any hindrance, and the plant looks fine. Oh, this is my Hoya rotundiflora. I really love this. The shape and the furry upper side of the leaf, it's so nice to the touch. I love touching this and the globulosa. And this will also, as you saw, gets very, very, very glossy despite the furry parts on top of the leaf. And now you are seeing the best leaf of my Hoya decay, and all the others are sunburnt. So I introduced this too fast to the sun, so that's why all those spots those are not fungus of any kind or a pest damage. None of my Hoyas have that. And this also received the neem oil treatment before it was filmed, because this was also filmed on the second day. That's when I gave the treatment. So I love that leaf and its speckling. And this is yet another Hoya which I do not know the ID of. I have several carnosas, several species Hoyas which I cannot give an ID because all of these Hoyas were found from within the country. None of these are imported. We have them in Sri Lanka, so I first thought when I got into the Hoya craze, I would start with the in-country Hoyas to see if I can really do a good job with them. And this is growing well, although some of the leaves became very small. And now you're seeing my Hoya obovata, which has two smaller leaves at the bottom. That's the initial plant I got with two deformed leaves. Then it took off, and when it took off I cut it and planted in the same pot yet again. You can see how nice the leaves are rounding up now. Initially this should not receive direct sunlight because the round shape would get haphazard. If so, that's what has happened to some of my bottom leaves. I learned it in the hard way. Now you are seeing one of my giants, Hoya Collection. I really love this plant. As much as I love this plant, this has not bloomed ever. So I got this very small from a nearby nursery. This was a quite a good plant, but it wasn't full like this. There were 3 long strands, and then I had to come up with new ideas for trellises. So therefore what I did was I bought cane and I made a wide ladder myself, a DIY, and just then started manuring these branches through the ladder, because this is very, very, very soft and breaks very easily. So this is the bird's eye view of the plant, which is doing wonderful. And this did even better earlier, but because I neglected this for some time, it stopped. It dropped a lot of leaves. Now finally it's fine. Okay, so I will be ending my video with this Hoya which is blooming. It always blooms. This, of course, everyone knows is the Hoya sunrise. And in the night I will not be able to step into my garden because the smell of this Hoya only intensifies in the night. And there are so many active peduncles, so many sun-stressed leaves and sun-stressed parts of this plant. and so many seed pods which you will see. And I cannot say enough good things about this, because this only needs repotting every 2 years, or yearly even is fine. And this Hoya sunrise of mine is in full cocoa husk. This is something that I would never do with my other Hoyas, but as you can see, it's doing fine. No matter how much water I give it, this never had root rot. So what my point is, so all these root rot and problems depend on the genetic of the plant also. If the plant is healthy, it can withstand all the sun, all the water or rain it gets. So you see the dark leaves. So I did not sun stress this, but you saw where it's hanging. That gets direct sunlight all throughout the day. I hose this down when I'm watering, and this is very happy. So I like to flush it out. I flush out all my Hoyas, because then new oxygen gets through to the roots, and the media gets free of all the dead material, all mineral buildups goes away. So I am really happy with this, and it was very hard for me to place this on this table, because it was trailing down the grass, and I think I stepped on a few strands also, but nothing happened. I keep going around this to film this and give you the 360 vision of my Hoya sunrise, and I tend to forget where the strands are lying on the grass. So I really love all my Hoyas, and I will be doing another video with regard to the smaller specimens I have and small leaf Hoyas. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you all for watching this.